Today we're going to look at Unit 7, Lesson 3, which introduces us to number lines a little bit more with decimals and fractions, and also introduces us to the idea of inequalities, showing whether a number is greater or less than another number. Okay, I'm going to order these numbers from the greatest to the least, and to help me figure that out, I'm going to draw a number line. For a problem like this, it is probably easiest to set it up horizontally as far as space on my screen goes, but you can also draw a vertical number line if that is your preference. I'm placing 0 here in the middle, okay, and I'm looking at the values to help me decide if I should use a scale of 1 or something else. Because the numbers are relatively close together, we should be able to fill in by the scale of 1. Okay, starting with our positive numbers. I'm not going to label each so that there's less written on the screen. So that would be 4, 5, 6, 7. And I can stop there because I know my biggest positive number is 6. Then I'm going to then fill in my negative numbers. Remember, we're counting backwards here. So starting with the first number away from the 0, that's -1. This would be -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, and lastly, I do need to include -8. That's the lowest number. I'm going to plot these points. I'll start with the whole numbers because those are a little bit easier. -4 is in between the -3 and -5. I'm going to put a dot there and label it. We have a +6, which is in between the +5 and 7, and -8. Here I have, the last one is 5 and 5/10. Okay, a little bit more tricky here dealing with a decimal. Remember, if we're graphing a decimal point, we want to convert this to a fraction. Okay, 5 and 5/10. Okay, and then we want to again make sure we simplify. 5 and 5/10 would simplify to 5 and 1/2. Okay, that's a positive number, so it's to the right of our 0. Okay, remember we want to make sure we identify what two values this is in between. So we have the whole number 5, and then we only have a half, so it's in between the 5 and the 6. Okay, to graph that point, 5 and 1/2, I would want to make space here, break up in between the 5 and the 6 with one line to break this up into 2 pieces, and then that would be my 5 and 1/2. To order these from greatest to least, okay, our greater numbers are further to the right, and I'm going to list them in order as I see. Okay, so the furthest number to the right is 6, followed by 5 and 1/2. And we just make our way across going from right to left, -4 and -8. As you become more comfortable with positive and negative numbers, you'll be able to do this without the number line. But as we are familiarizing ourselves with this, we can use that to support us. Let's see one more example. Okay, in this one, I'm going to go from least to greatest. Okay, and again, I'll make a number line to support me. And I'll put 0 here in the middle. Starting with my positives, I need to make it up to +7. That's 3. Again, I'm not labeling each number just so that there's less written on the number line. And then my negatives, I want to space out until -5. So that's -1, 2, -3, -4, and -5. So again, on this example, I'll start with my whole numbers as they're a little bit easier. We have our -5 and a +7. Okay, 1 and 1/2 is already in its fraction form. And so I just need to identify that's in between 1 and 2. And again, with a denominator of 2, I'm just splitting up in between the 1 and the 2 into 2 spaces. And I'll plot that as 1 1/2. And that leaves me with my last one here is -2 4/10. Okay, and again, I want to put that as a fraction so I can graph it. I want to simplify it so I have less space to break it up into. And I end up having -2 and 2/5. Okay, be careful again with the negative numbers as this is new to us. Okay, -2 and 2/5 will be in between here my -2 and my -3. Okay, and I want to break this up into my denominator here is 5 pieces. Okay, to break it up in 5 pieces, I draw 4 lines. And I'm going to -2 and 2/5. So that would be -2 and 1/5. And here is -2 and 2/5. Right. This one is asking me to go from least to greatest. So I'm going to list my numbers in order, starting on the left side, and make my way to the right. So I have -5. I'm going to write this as -2.4, which does represent that -2 and 2/5. I have 1 1/2, and then the last number I plotted there was 7. The second part of today's lesson is filling in with less than or greater than symbols. Okay, remember the less than makes an L, so this is less, and that is greater. Okay, if you need a number line to support you to fill this in, you can absolutely do that. But with only 2 values, we should be able to identify less than or greater than. Okay, a negative number is always going to be less than a positive. So I could say -2 is less than 5. Okay, same thing is happening here. I have a -6 and a +8. Okay, but on my last example, I'm going to show you I have 2 negative numbers. Okay, when I'm identifying which one is less than or greater than, I want to think about where they fall in relation to the 0. Okay, so as we move further left, we become more negative. And so actually with a negative value, the bigger the number, the lesser its value. So -5 and 5/10 is actually greater than -6 because it's closer to the 0. You'll see some examples in the lesson where I have a negative number like -3 and I have a positive number of 1. Okay, and so when we are identifying which one's greater or less, it's not always which one's closer to 0, it's which one has the value further to the right. Okay, because this is a positive number is always going to be greater than a negative. Again, as we continue to practice these skills, I know this is new to you guys, we'll continue working on this and keep it up.